member that wants to suggest something between now and next week. I think, you know, the issues about writing to broader people, I wouldn't have necessarily an issue with. I'm not sure about risk and whether we've got enough information, but that's pretty much covered in the report, Mayor.
And probably just follow up, Councillor Gasser, but obviously next week there may be other kinds of amendments, so it's very hard to start considering all kinds of amendments to be published in an agenda, and that's why we'll deal with that next week and the opportunity for any elected member to speak to that, as well as obviously Ms Truman or any other member to make any comments next week as well during the same deputation process. But the reason we wouldn't publish suggested amendments is that there could be 100 of those. Sure. Yeah, sure. And this is the as you'll see with the number of the different motions that we have in there. There's the motion that was raised, and then the executive recommendation, which is just common practice, government's practice for any annual electors meeting to go through to an OCM. Okay, thank you. Moving along. Item 10.3.1, and I know there is a confidential appendicity to this, so if there are any particular questions of this, Councillor Kozisek, what I may suggest, we might, rather than go behind closed doors now to take any of those questions, we'll leave that to the end of the meeting so we can work through those who are here to join us for other items. So we'll park 10.3.1 for now, and we'll come back to that. Thank you. 10.3.2 is the Sister Cities Advisory Group reinstatement. Is there any questions on that? Councillor Ramesh? Sure, I might ask the CEO to make some commentary. I'll pass that on, and CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. This is in relation to the Sister Cities Working Group, so those sister cities that we have a formal relationship with. For other multicultural events and other community groups that we support, we've still obviously got our events funding and some of that specific that we do to that. I think if there is the desire to do more in that space, then that's a question for the budget. But this is particularly around sister cities.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. And certainly if it's in any future conversation around, I guess, sister city relationships or partnerships or economic development, it'll have to be a case-by-case scenario, which will be presented back to council to deal with. And I think where this has changed and the conversations have been had is obviously the resourcing allocation to be allocating to that. So if there were to be something different, obviously council would consider any additional resources to support that, and whether or not council of the day wanted to support that. Further questions? Thank you. 10.3.3 is a schedule of accounts paid. Is there any questions on this? Thank you. 10.4.1 is the proposed scheme amendments for Victoria Road. Is there any questions on this? Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Gasser. I'll just ask you to leave the room, please. 10.4.2, is there any questions on this? There is 2 recommendations next week that council have put forward. So obviously we'll be asking for one of those to be moved. Yeah, that's a Quayne first, sorry. Sure. Sure. So for those who are listening along with us, obviously there was a number of questions asked or points made from a member of the community. So and that's been forwarded on for some advice, which will be taken on notice. Thank you. Councillor Turner. Yeah, sure. Impartial interest, I would suggest, Councillor Turner, but I don't think it would be a financial interest. No, just an impartial interest then. So yeah, you don't need to leave the room for impartial interest. Sure. CEO is just happy to make a few comments around where the 2 options have come from.
So just in looking at this, is obviously 2 recommendations there, and there's a choice around monitoring the impacts, which I would probably suggest is a preferred option. The second option would require around 250,000 to be spent to do that. So, you know, one of the options is to monitor and see the impacts from the development, and then, you know, bring that back in 12 months. So there is a second part of recommendation 1 that says we will bring a report back so that if there is impacts, we can reconsider the need for further parking solutions in that area.
Further questions on this? Thank you. Just grab Councillor Gassett for me, please. Thank you, planning staff. Thank you. Welcome back. 10.4.3 is awaiting a report to be provided. Do you want to make any further comment on that, CEO?
So I think there was a previous report to council that talked about the CSRFF, and that we're all well aware of the issues we have with the turf at the hockey club. The further investigation of that revealed that the original turf was replaced slowly at the club's cost, so there was no CSRFF funding that or city contribution to that development. There is further meetings going on with the Perth Thundersticks, who are keen to play down in our region, but we need an appropriate turf, not only for that, but also for the club to maintain its standing as a premier sporting club in Bunbury. So the report will recommend some additional funding over the 241 that we already approved, and a further loan to the Bunbury Hockey Club to allow that to happen. So, and our recommendation, given the previous turf was replaced solely by the club, that we would consider recommend supporting that, but that'll come back.
Thanks, CEO. When are you expecting that report to be provided? Sure. So that information will provide and become part of the agenda. Any further questions on that? Thank you. 10.5.1, councillors, the council decision was made prior to the election from a special council meeting to get this funded, and obviously council made the amendment or added in the point there to bring a decision back for when this would be refunded, and that information is there. Any questions on this? Thank you. Okay. Annual meeting of electors motion. It's quite a difficult word, that one. We'll just call it weed control. This was a motion moved by Bernard Bishop. Any questions on this? Councillor Gassam? Sure. CEO?
Not being a weed expert, Mayor, we may, if that's a question, we're happy to provide some additional information via a briefing note, unless any of the staff can. So I think it's probably easier we just provide that separately.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us, Bernard. We'll move along. 10.5.3, we have received a deputation on this item, though. And this is the electors' motion for installation and maintenance of soap dispensers in the toilet box. And the motion mover was Kim Chitsey, and Kim is going to come make her deputation. So Kim, thank you for coming and join us. Similar ruling, you have 10 minutes. I know you've sort of asked a couple of questions here. I would probably have to take them on notice, but happy to, you can discuss and talk about the journey where you've got to from the start to here, probably. Yeah, use the handheld one, thanks, Kim. It should just be red, yeah, at some stage. Red light. Right next to it, in the middle. David, do you want to have a look? Thanks, David.
Oh, thank you. I don't need to read all the rest of this, Jason.
No. So this is your
No.
moment to talk about
Okay.
why we shouldn't be supporting the executive recommendations. If you have questions, you can potentially raise them, and we can see how we go.
Okay. Thanks to you all who have helped get this in motion at last. I've been fighting for some time to have this important public health initiative in our toilets. One of my questions is how many toilets will have these dispensers? I read that it's going to be implemented slowly. Is it 10, 20, 100? Does anyone know?
Well, I think we may or may not have a response to that, but we'll probably take, I noticed you've written a couple of questions down here as well, which I'm happy to ask now, and rather than get into that back and forth between questions, if elected members have those questions, we can ask them, and we can certainly, any other questions you do have, if you get them in writing to us, we'll supply in writing to you before next week as well.
You'll get them to me. Okay.
And the elected members will be any
and
information.
of course the similar question was, where are these toilets with the new soap dispensers going to be put? Are they going to be put in the high traffic areas? Are they going to be put in the tourist areas such as Coombana Bay? And I also wanted to just mention that dispensers should be put above the basins to limit spillage. I know one of the problems over the years has been the idea that if these things are vandalised, that the spillage might cause slippage and people to be hurting themselves. If the dispenser is put over the top of the basin, the less likelihood of that falling onto the floor. And then one of the other things that I thought of, because I got the idea from Mandurah, there should be signs installed regarding vandalism, so that if people come into the toilets, see that the soap dispensers or any other vandalism has occurred, that they could do something like put a QR code to come to Bunbury, so that straight away that vandalism could be noted. And also at the same time, because Mandurah does it, I know, if they've run out of soap, to let the council know. One of the other things that occurred to me, and a few other people mentioned over the time, that this will be a good initiative for our homeless. Unfortunately, we can't offer people respite from their homelessness, but at least if we could give them soap in our toilets, that's one social aspect that would help. And other than all the other things that I've mentioned and that are included up there, it's such an important public health issue, and I really do feel that if we're only one of the few jurisdictions who don't have soap in toilets now, that we really should reconsider the decision from a few years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. There is obviously some information there that's supplied in that recommendation, which does talk about the high traffic areas, but I don't know if the CEO has any numbers of where and number around that, but I'll ask if he's got any comment. Otherwise, we'll take that on notice and supply.
So thank you, Mayor. I don't have the list of where and how many, other than that will be in highly visible, highly used areas, and obviously along our beach. And if we take the new toilets that we just put in at Kumbana, there is an outside sink that would be really, you know, an opportune to stick a soap dispenser on the outside of that. So I'm happy to provide that info. I know some of the elected members have asked about the costing, so I'll provide just a further breakdown of that as well.
And that process will also probably be discussed during our budgeting workshop. Obviously, if this becomes a budget, well, when this becomes a budget item, if approved next week, then those sort of figures and what, you know, what value you can get and what budgeted line items are given to it, can we work through that process too? Is there any other questions on this, Councillor Turner? Yeah, so indicative of where the indicative financial budgeting things come from, CEO, is we have some figures or we can provide something around that?
So I thought that I answered that in the last response, that we would provide some additional information, because I know some of the elected members have raised that, so I'll get a breakdown of that and provide that.
Before I went out? Yep, sure. Councillor Quinn? We can, I think the CEO has indicated that as we start talking about what that process will look like, it would become operational in nature, I would suggest, but in terms of number and what that vision looks like over the next while, I'm sure he can provide some more information on that. And yeah, I think the same sort of question around high visibility and high usage areas being a high priority. I'm sure we could consider part of those as all part of that when this goes in, and there's probably all kinds of designs which you get a notification when they're hit a certain level and all things like that as well. So I'm sure there's many things that can be considered, and see our Director of Works isn't here yet. We have a very capable replacement, but I'm sure our normal Director knows well and truly about this because it's been discussed for a long time. Councillor Turner? And we can, yeah, and that'll again be providing that further update on information on how that's done, how vandalism is picked up, what anti-vandalism options there are, etc., etc. Further questions? Thank you. 10.5.4 was the annual meeting of electors motion, and this one was for Strickland Street, and we do have a deputation on this item from Mr. Christopher Morris, who also raised this motion at council. So, Chris, I understand you have provided some notes here for the elected members as well. Same as applies as previous speakers. You have 10 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say that the motion asked approve and prioritise a pedestrian crosswalk and or safety island on Strickland Street, linking Woodstock West Village and other residents of East Bunbury, not just Woodstock West, but residents of East Bunbury who live on that side of the Strickland Street. Ensure safe passage for pedestrians, particularly elderly and disabled residents of Woodstock West, as well as staff of the shopping centre whose car park is on Strickland Street opposite the shopping centre. Now, we met with a couple of the council staff and we went through the issues with them, but there seems to be some confusion, I think, with what they've come back with. What we're looking for is currently there's no safe pedestrian crossing on Strickland Street linking East Bunbury residents and Woodstock West residents with the Bunbury Forum Shopping Centre, and also the fast food outlets, and also Sandridge Village Shopping Centre, which is a bit further down. There is a speed hump linking the 10-pin bowling alley and the Bunbury Forum staff car park to the Bunbury Forum site, and that's currently used as a main crossing area but causes confusion for motorists and pedestrians alike because it has that sort of half pseudo, if you like, just some markings on the side of the road where you think, is it a pedestrian crossing or is it not? And sometimes people go to cross there, cars stop, other cars don't. So the confusion is there. In wintertime, poorly lit, so again it's a bit of a problem for those working in the Forum Shopping Centre to come back to the car park, which is on the other side of Strickland Street on the 10-pin bowling alley side. The actual speed hump that's in place there was probably put in place some 10 years ago after some fine work by a former councillor, Tom Dillon, who worked hard to get it put in place. We talked about back then about having a crossing there, but that was knocked back as well. And I think some of the things that we ought to think about is just how much Strickland Street has become a busier road now that the shopping centre has increased in size. And also between Pennant and Preston Street, a distance of some 700 to 800 metres, there are 13 vehicle access points, excluding the private residences that are on there. And those access points are to all the fast food outlets, also to the Sandridge Village Shopping Centre, and also back towards those entrances to the actual Forum Shopping Centre. The meeting with council representatives in June 25 was advised that a traffic management plan would need to be undertaken and the findings would be provided to Woodstock West. I got them tonight. So I'm in a bit of a confusion about what they have decided and why it has taken so long to be able to get those findings delivered. So the executive recommendation states that an additional pedestrian crossing point is not supported is incorrect because currently there are no public designated crossing points anywhere on Strickland Street. What we did suggest in the first place was to use that speed hump area, probably to look at that, increase the lighting on it, increase some signage on it, and then maybe use that as a designated crossing point. At the moment, there are speed signs there that says hump 20 kilometres per hour, only on one side, because one of the signs on the other side got knocked down 6 months ago, and despite the fact that I raised it with council, it hasn't been replaced. But in this report tonight that I've just seen for the first time, it says that implementation of the recommended signing measures will be completed within this financial year. Okay, so in the meantime, we still have to put up with the fact that there's no signage or speed signage warnings anywhere along that road. It's become busier and busier for people to be able to access the Forum Shopping Centre. So from Woodstock West, we make our way down past the bowling alley to where this speed hump is. The reason we come down that way is because there is no footpath on the other side. So why would I ask for a crossing, an extra crossing to be put across the road when there's no footpath to cater for it? What we're asking is that the speed hump area be reinvestigated, probably relayed because it's about 10 years old. And to be perfectly honest, I know that they've said they've done a traffic management that says, 50 kilometres an hour is the one that everybody seems to stick by. But really, it's just being used as a training track for a lot of the four-wheel drives that come along there to see how fast they can go across the hump. And it really is getting faster and faster. I mean, the amount of traffic that comes in and out of the car park area where the fast food outlets is really just mind-boggling sometimes. So at least we don't have to put up with the designated vape store that was there for quite some time, which probably had about 100 visitors per day coming in and going out. Anyway, councillors, I just ask that probably you look at it and come out and meet with me if you like, or go out and have a look at this designated or so-called designated crossing point. Just understand that kids also use it quite a bit, because from the bowling alley they quite often come across that area there to go and use the fast food outlet or go into the shopping centre. And quite often the coaches park on the opposite side because there's not any room within the bowling alley car park. So please come out. You've got till next week to just give it a look for me, see what you think about it. And, I'm the president of the Residents Committee at Woodstock West, of which there are 123 villas in that area. The only designated life sometimes these people have is to go across to the shopping centre to have a coffee and meet with friends. That's their day. But they need a safe place to be able to cross. And I'm not just talking Woodstock West, I'm talking East Bunbury residents. There are a lot of people in East Bunbury, and the only place they can come across is to cross Strickland Street. Where? The only place is where? Designated, not designated public crossing point, just a hump. I would like to remind you too of the 160 residents at Woodstock West are all ratepayers and all have had a visit from all of you or some of you during the council elections, yet nobody has been to see them to ask questions about whether or not it's safe to cross this area. Please, any questions? I'd be glad to answer.
Thanks, Christopher. And there's not the opportunity for the Q&A with the elected members, but obviously you've made that kind invitation to elected members, and we have your mobile number on here, so if any of them are more than happy to speak to you with that afterwards. But thank you for your deputation. Elected members may have some questions of the CEO, and you can listen into that, and obviously anything that you want to feed back into them after that, you're more than welcome to do so. Thank you. Elected members, Councillor Turner. CEO.
Thank you, man. Again, I'm not a traffic expert, but Aaron is here that may be able to answer that, or we can take that on notice. Similarly, I think Mr. Morris has got some questions within his deputation. We're happy to take those as public questions and respond to those and make sure all elected members get a copy of that too.
Yep. You might just have to speak loudly now. I'll give you a go if you can give an answer to that. Hi, Aaron, we'll just get you address council rather than that.
As an example, we haven't been able to meet those warrants anywhere in our CBD. So you'll notice we don't have formal zebra crossings through the Bunbury CBD. But they did introduce some new crossing guidelines, which we haven't applied for yet, but potentially make it a lot easier for us to have zebra crossings going forward. So happy to investigate whether we can formalise a zebra crossing at that location.
Sure. Hang on to that mic, because there might be a few more coming your way. Councillor Quain. Yeah, I'm not sure you get lighting, and it's probably maybe the questions around if that were to be changed, yeah, through that point, I guess anything to do with the crosswalk and speed bump would obviously be main roads, but I think some of the comments were around some of the lighting on the footpath, which what I assume would be the City of Bunbury's obviously responsibility.
Again, I might ask Aaron Lindsay to answer that for us.
Yep, confirming that lighting would be a city responsibility, and so would the installation of any zebra crossings. We would just need to seek approval from the state to be able to do that.
If I could just follow that, so just to clarify, would be it's a City of Bunbury cost for any changes to that safe crosswalk, even though that word safe has been probably disputed here, but it would be any cost allocation would be the City of Bunbury's, but it would need approval from Main Roads. Thank you.
Correct.
Further questions, Councillor Gwen? Thanks, Aaron.
I might have to take that one on notice if I can.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn. I was going to say, are you phasing that as a question, Councillor Gwen? I think what's been pointed out, that would be a City of Bunbury cost. Would you maybe a question through the CEO or to the CEO who might defer it, but any idea, you've just talked about the potential of getting some zebra crossing or nose. Any idea what costings has been indicated what they would be? CEO?
Yeah, I might just ask Aaron to answer that as well.
Don't know the costings off my top of my head, but we do have budget in place for signs and line marking, and I'm sure we could accommodate it within current operational budgets if we were to get such approval.
Sure. Thank you. Councillor Turner. So if we were to write to our main roads and requesting any of that to be approved, any idea around how long that timing would take through you, Mr. CEO?
Thank you. We're obviously reliant on writing to main roads, but Aaron may have an idea of the rough time frame.
I would hope that we'd have a clarification within the current financial year.
Further questions on this one? Councillor Casson? Sure. I'll deal with question 2 first, because I think obviously you can put that amendment, but if you're requesting about what an alternative recommendation may be have around wording, what I'm hearing, that would have to be a request to Main Roads to support that concept. But obviously I can ask, I think the CEO will take that on notice and see what potential alternative motion could be written up to that sense. Councillor Gassab, CEO, are you happy with that sort of position if there were to be an appetite, and council can consider that next week. In terms of your first question, which was around the consultation for the traffic management report, was that? Should just to help where we're at. Oh, Councillor.
So I think to answer Councillor Gassab's question, I've already said that the questions that Mr. Morris has raised in his deputation request, that we would just use those as public questions and treat them as public questions. So we'll respond to those and provide responses to them.
Sorry, I thought he was talking about this report. Thank you. Councillor Cassett. I'll take that as a statement, Councillor Cassett, and you obviously can raise points next week around that. Councillors, any further questions? It doesn't allow for that. Thank you, Christopher. Normally wouldn't allow outbursts from the gallery, but it's been a weird night and the technology is not working, so they wouldn't have heard you. Thank you. Any further questions before we move on? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Smith has indicated that she has a prior engagement that she needs to get to. Thank you, Councillor Smith. We do move along, and we'll work through that next week, to 10.5.6, which I think we missed a 10.5.5, but I think there was one. So we just might need to change the numbering of those around. Thank you. And this is the annual meeting of electors' motion for the Bunbury Artificial Reef, which was raised at the meeting. I think, can't remember who actually moved it, but anyway, it was supported. We do have a deputation from Troy Bodigal, but I indicated there may be other speakers to it. But if not, come and join us you have 10 minutes anyway, so if there are others, that can be accommodated. Yeah, that one.
Hello. Hey. Hello, everybody. The Bunbury Artificial Reef Committee acknowledge and support the executive recommendations. Our deputation basically just asked that the council executive commences support for the Bar COB working group prior to the recommendations tabled. So basically, yeah, if we can get on with it, that'd be great. We're very motivated and very keen. The Bar Committee are committed to working voluntarily to collaborate with the City of Bunbury to establish a COB bar working group that includes city officers and the members of the bar team. 2, the bar working group will report at all times to the executive. 3, the bar working group will scope and execute studies required, i.e. stand studies and engineering. 4, the bar working group will seek funding, state, federal, private, etc., for additional studies and ultimately construction. And 5, the bar working group will be a great example of community-driven project where a lot of the project management and support will be delivered on a voluntary basis. So again, we're very motivated, and if we're asking the council fast track it at some stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Troy. Was there an indication that, I think there's other members there, that you wanted to make any deputation? You're all good, Ben? And you do have 10 minutes, so you were very good, Troy. Normally we'll just keep going, but I know Ben indicated he had suggested.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I mean, the Bunbury Artificial Reef Group is made up of Amanda Yip, Brand Edwards and Troy and myself, so we're all community members. We're driven to implement this artificial reef, very similar to what Albany has recently done. We've seen the benefits of that. In summary, our reef is sort of got some key attributes. One is to activate that back beach area to improve or reduce coastal erosion that's happening along the back beach area. We know that's already happening, and there's the char map work that's already underway, so we want to supplement the work that's happening in that space.
We want to create a better surfing experience for the people of Bunbury, which in turn will attract tourists to our city, and also provide a great outlet for local people and the like. The last sort of key benefit that we see for the artificial reef is the enhancement of the local environment through habitat creation. So those sort of the key attributes of the artificial reef. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes for the last 18 months or so. We have a concept design. We've engaged with the community. We've had community forums. Many of you would have been there at the event that we had at the Froth Brewery back in April last year, which was a great turnout. We've had hundreds and hundreds of positive comments and support through our social media presence. And as I said, we've got a website where all of our designs and frequently asked questions are posted as well. So we've been very active in promoting the artificial reef, and for those benefits which I described earlier, we think it's a really good project for the city to support. And we believe that it's really important that it'll fit in with the char map work that's been done, the coastal erosion work that's already been done, and the note in the agenda there that the city officers support this the work that we've done already. So that's what we'd like to see. We really want to get the working group underway. Brant, Amanda, Troy and I are basically working for free. We're doing the work, so we want to go out and advocate for the reef, attract funding, talk to our local state politicians to attract funding so we can do the next round of studies. The next study that we want to get done is a sand erosion study, which will support the wave erosion study that we've already done. So there's a plan that we've mapped out. Happy to share that with councillors if they've got any questions. And like we've seen with the Albany wave, we believe that we can build something in Bunbury that's going to benefit a lot of people and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from councillors on this particular item? Councillor Pruitt. It has to be back to the CEO. If you've got questions for those members who've spoken or any members of that community, you can ask them directly, even potentially in 3 minutes' time. But if it's for the city, obviously through CEO. Councillor Quain. Yeah, look, I can probably pass to the CEO about where that recommendation has come from and why that would include obviously April 26 and potentially then getting some more. And I'll just pass before I make assumptions. I'll pass the CEO to make some commentary around that. Thank you, Mayor. Inside the report, it does reference some work that a study that's going to be done in it's earmarked for 27-28. So that I think both Troy and Ben referenced the sand study, which we're well aware of. What I want the staff to do is to spend some more time with Troy and Ben and the group to understand the study that they need, and then understand the study that we've got planned, and if that we can bring that forward, that potentially is a way to keep some of the studies going so that we know the impact. Clearly, if the reef does demonstrate that it can contribute to part of the coastal erosion rather than, as you know, the char map recommending, I think, 14 groins, I think that would be something that we would consider. But the idea is there's more information that we need, and that's why we suggest we bring it back in April. Thank you, CEO. Councillor Quain. Yes, probably. I'd say, do you have a comment on that? Might be a question for them.
Yeah, probably a question for the bar group. Maybe in the early day, I did see the master plan. I can't remember when we saw the revised design whether that was discussed. So it's probably a question for the group.
Councillor Mesh. No, it's not at that stage just yet, and I think that's where the request from this group is to continue some of that work, and obviously the CEO has indicated that some of that work is underway. That's why he's suggesting that bringing a report back in April would potentially address some of those things, but I'll pass to the CEO to make any further comment.
No, you're correct, Mayor. We obviously know what the Albany one costs, but that's a different construct than what's being proposed at the Clam at the Hollow. So I'm not sure what the cost will be or whether it will cost anything to maintain. I don't. Yeah, we don't know that, and that's why we need more further discussions around that to inform that.
Councillor Quain.
Thank you, Mayor. Right, there is, and I think there's been money given to some coastal erosion initiatives in the city. So I know places like Mandurah, and I think City Beach and a couple other beaches north of Perth receive funding. So there's the potential for that. The city has been putting money aside into the Charmap Reserve, so we're obviously trying to build some capacity to take some of the recommendations. There's further work, as you know, through the Charmap plan that needs to be done to validate some of the information, because some of the assumptions are just that. They're just assumptions that need to be tested. So we do have some capacity within the money we are putting aside. I think we're putting aside up to 150,000 a year, 400,000. So we do have some capacity for a sand study to be funded, and that was the discussion we had some time ago when the presentation was made by the bar group. But we would include that in the report and the information that we provide back in April.
Thank you. Further questions on this item? There may be a couple of questions from the group there. If you guys will be finished very shortly, so we can potentially have that afterwards. Although in saying that, we actually do need to go back to an item that we went over earlier, which there are some confidential nature in this particular report. So I will just ask those who are with us to please leave the room. We'll deal with this particular item, and then we'll be finishing this meeting. So if you would like to hang around afterwards to talk to anyone, you may well do, but we won't be coming back to make any decision from that point onwards. So this will be the last item we deal with. But thank you all for joining us.